Now I want to give a special thank you to Spins and ClearCut Analytics for underwriting our next session. Please welcome Dan Harari of ClearCut Analytics and Scott Dicker of Spins. They're going to give us insight into microbiome market trends. And just a little tip here, pay attention because we do have trivia coming up after this session, and you might just get some of the answers if you're taking note of what these guys say. So Scott, I will turn the stage over to you now.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and really great information so far today. So really excited to be following this up with what the market's looking like. Let me share my screen real quick. Does everyone see that?
Looks great.
Looks great. Awesome. So we are going to get into some of the market trends related to products that support the microbiome, and that'll be both foods as well as supplements. Real quickly, thank you for that great introduction. My name is Scott Dicker. I'm a Senior Market Insights Analyst at Spins, and I will be joined with Dan Harari, who is the Head of Business Development at ClearCut Analytics, and really one of the best people understanding what's going on online with a lot of these sales of these products. So we'll have a lot of great information for you. For anyone unfamiliar with Spins, we are a data-focused, wellness-focused data company that helps brands and retailers both with innovation, getting their products to market, telling their stories, understand what the consumers are looking for. I thought that was a great point in the previous presentation on how consumers and brands and retailers are driving a lot of the growth in these products. And so, we are seeing that a lot in the data as well. Really quickly, a look at some of the data that we'll be presenting today. We look at conventional data, which is your big box stores. And we also look at some proprietary accounts in the natural grocery, e-commerce, vitamin supplement space, neighborhood pet, which isn't as relevant for today, and regional independent grocery. So throughout the presentation, we'll be going back and forth between some brick and mortar data and also some Amazon data. And then to gather the insights, Spins uses the most comprehensive product intelligence on the market, scanning all label information just from package size, product facts, understanding the ingredient statements to generate health and wellness, allergen sensitivities, sustainability, clean label, and much more. So let's get into the topic of the day. We want to get into the prebiotic and probiotic market, as well as the fermented foods. So to understand, what people are purchasing that's either for their microbiome or that's helping it and they're buying it for something else. Just to level set at a very high level, I wanted to start by taking a look at some top line channel sales of things that have prebiotics and probiotics in them. So you could see while it's just about flat in natural grocery, it's growing in each other segment here. And so, the growth is coming pretty evenly distributed in the regional independent and conventional. And then Dan's going to get into what's going on in Amazon, so I won't spend time on that. One of the big trends, that we're seeing when we look at prebiotics and probiotics, they're known for, and when they came to market as supplements, really being for digestive health. But as we know now, it's really important for a lot of different areas of health. And so you see that these products are now being promoted and marketed for these different health focuses. Things like even mood support or urinary tract health, energy support, and immune health. And so it's something that we saw, increase and explosion of growth in during the pandemic was this idea of helping your immunity. And then, that started off as traditional immune health supplements like vitamin C and elderberry and vitamin D and zinc. And then it's really expanded into, a lot of these next level adjacent categories, and gut health is really one that makes a lot of sense. So people are using it, for their immune system as well. And you see here, even where some of the sales numbers aren't too large, the growth numbers for a lot of these segments is very high. And it's coming with that understanding that a lot of different health aspects start in the gut and microbiome. One of the key trends we see is around apple cider vinegar, as people take this for their microbiome as well. And we see it's similar to probiotic and prebiotic supplements, that it's coming in a lot of different forms. So both in liquid, gummies, the Goli gummies came to market and really exploded apple cider vinegar. And so, it's delivering some of this natural gut health properties from that fermentation process. We also see it in beverages and shots. So one of the areas when it's really made mainstream is when ingredient transfers over from being in predominantly supplements to being in food and beverage. So we're seeing this in a lot of beverages and shots, and even in some shelf-stable options where a lot of them were refrigerated before. Another difference that we've been seeing in the marketing of these supplements is that they are being marketed as probiotic and prebiotic combos, whereas even just a few years ago it was mostly just probiotics. So understanding how both of them are playing a role in consumers' perception of gut health has really changed things, and to have more comprehensive formulas. And then, as I mentioned, we know that things are important when we start to see them popping up into functional foods. They usually start off in functional beverages, but we're seeing, an influx of products in the snacks segment. So things like probiotic chips or bars that have added probiotics, cookies that are advertised as gut health. So this is part of that rise of that conscious consumer, where they're looking for their food to be their medicine, but they don't want to give up a lot of the foods that they love. So they're looking for some of these foods to provide them with the benefits that they want without having to give up the types of food that they're eating. So this is a nice, convenient way that a lot of people are getting in their probiotics. And you see it heavily advertised on the labels, so brands know that consumers are looking for it. I want to take a quick look at yogurt trends. This is, probably the biggest. This is the biggest category of probiotic-rich food. So see what's going on there. Obviously, people don't only eat yogurt for that reason, but it is a main source of this food. And so you see, regular old dairy yogurt is still the dominance in the market. Then as we dive into some of the growth, we see drinkable yogurt, is growing at 19%. Plant-based yogurt is growing at 9%. And then we see on the other end, things like drinkable plant-based yogurt isn't doing as well right now. And then what product types are leading the charge there? We see cashew yogurt is showing a lot of growth, along with coconut and soy. And then from the dairy perspective, we see lassi and Australian yogurt. So some of these more gourmet types of yogurt in the U.S. Are taking off. And just to kind of keep going on that, a lot of these international flavors are entering the market. This rise in plant-based has hit yogurt, and so we're seeing a rise of a variety of different plant-based sources, things like cashew, oat as well. And they are really letting people know that they also contain probiotics in them. So it's one of the things that has been on people's mind is do these plant-based alternatives carry some of those same benefits as dairy? And in the case of plant-based yogurt, they do contain probiotics as well. And you're also seeing some new forms, things like yogurt bars and other things like that, where there's again this different convenience options and different forms that people are able to get their yogurt in. As we continue to talk about fermented foods for the microbiome, we're seeing a lot of brands being innovative, with kind of traditional products. And so it's really on top of consumers' minds, and so they're putting it on the label to really highlight the benefits. So things like sauerkraut, is advertising that that has live cultures. Kimchi, putting it fermented as this, acknowledgement and education increases on the benefits of fermented foods, you see them putting it right on the label where it wasn't before. And then on the right, you see some other fermented, some data on some other fermented foods and vegetables and their growth there as well. So things like pickled beets up 21%. You see the sauerkraut up 8% and relish up 38%. And so understanding that, going back to what was said previously, is that it's not only supplements. A lot of this is through food. Supplements can also help, but some of these fermented foods really are resonating with consumers. And looking at some functional beverages, the fermented beverages, outside of yogurt, is still dominated by kombucha. Kombucha's really made it mainstream, and we're seeing all sorts of innovation with kombucha, mixed with other things, different flavors, juice added, but that understanding that it's helping your gut health as well is playing a big role. Some other, kvass is up 70%. We're seeing private label doing really well, and then cider vinegar drinks as drinks instead of supplements is actually down right now, but we do see it in those other forms really doing well. And so everyone's always looking, what's the next kombucha when we talk about fermented beverages? So there's a lot of new entrants. There's probiotic sodas, sparkling waters, other drinks like tapachi. I hope I said that right. So take a look for other fermented beverages. As this awareness continues to grow, and it is going to continue to grow, and the microbiome health becomes really a driving force for a lot of products, you'll see it spread across a bunch of different categories as we see the growth of fermented foods and microbiome products. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he'll talk about some of the trends that we're seeing on Amazon.
Thanks, Scott. I'll take it from here. A lot of the slides made me both hungry and thirsty. So thank you for all of that great information. As Scott mentioned, I'm going to be speaking about the Amazon piece. ClearCut became a part of SPINS last year, so it's been great to be working with my colleague Scott and others in the SPINS organization to provide a really good omni-channel view of what's happening across the different retail channels and brick and mortar, as well as the Amazon space, which is obviously a major player today. This is a slide that I like to go over before I kick off on the data. Is why is Amazon such a powerful data source for trends? A few of those reasons are that Amazon is an infinite shelf size of products and brands, unlike in a retail store where you have a limited real estate of how many bottles you can fit on a shelf. On Amazon, essentially, you can fit as many brands and products and categories as you want because there's no limitation. Amazon includes both legacy and digitally native brands, meaning brands that have been around in brick and mortar for decades, as well as new brands that are up and comers that have started on Amazon or online a few months ago or a couple of years back. And Amazon dominates e-commerce for CPG, especially for vitamins and supplements, with over a 70% market share of e-commerce for this category. As we go to the next slide, this is a very telling slide. So this kind of shows us the sheer size of some of these categories and subsegments on Amazon. So there are more than 4 subsegments on Amazon today, registering more than $400 million in sales. A subsegment is probiotics, vitamin C, omegas. That's what we consider a subsegment. There's 34 registering more than $100 million annually, and there are 48 with more than $50 million. So Amazon has arrived in vitamins and supplements. It is a major player and disturbing the retail market overall in the US. In the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about why Amazon is that crystal ball for what's coming next. So because Amazon is lacks essentially that gatekeeper, that buyer for the brick and mortar retail stores or chains, we see brands innovating on Amazon first. There's also a lower cost to fail. So you can do smaller product runs. You don't have to get the approval of the buyer at Target or CVS or Sprouts to put the product on the shelf. You can try out new flavors, sizes, attributes, and see what sticks with the consumer. You're making Amazon that incubator for new products. That means that we need to be looking at what's happening on Amazon to identify what are we expecting to make it to brick and mortar in the next 2 or 3 years based on what is grabbing some traction in the Amazon space. As we go to the next slide, we'll start out with our first subsegment in probiotics. So this is a category that continues to amaze me. It's one of the top 5 largest vitamin and supplement categories on Amazon today. It's still growing at 18%. 18% is a substantial growth rate in any year for any category, but it hasn't really slowed from a dollar perspective either. So despite probiotics continuing to grow and continuing to eclipse 100, 200, 300, $400 million mark on Amazon, it is still growing at double digits. As we go to the next slide, we'll take a deeper dive into the category, trying to understand what is driving some of the growth in this space. Probiotics is still dominated by capsules with a 73% market share in the category, and still dominated in the growth with 23%. We see gummies here at number 3. It is one of the only categories that gummies isn't the fastest growing delivery form for the category. Wherever we kind of see gummies pop up, they tend to be the fastest growing delivery method or form in the space. The top 5 brands in probiotics are Garden of Life, Physician's Choice, Culturelle, Renew Life, and Align Probiotic. This is a combination of brands that have really dominated natural with Physician's Choice, a brand that has really been digital and Amazon native, and it's going to start, I assume at some point, making its way over to the brick and mortar space just because of their sheer dominance on Amazon. And then some brands that are more conventional like Culturelle and Align also with a major presence. We haven't seen a huge uptake in the price for probiotics. We're obviously all tracking inflation. This is a category that has remained relatively steady with a 1% growth in average price over the last year. In the next slide, we'll take a dive into some of the top 5 products in the space. So the number 1 selling product is Garden of Life. The second product in the category is Physician's Choice. Physician's Choice, this SKU and the Garden of Life SKU, they tend to go back and forth for that number 1 spot. All top 5 products in probiotics are capsules, and we see a different range of price points as well, from as low as about $17 all the way to $57 with a full restore product. In the next slide, we'll take a look at digestive enzymes. This is a much smaller category from a dollars perspective, but is one that is growing faster than probiotics with a very healthy 22% year-over-year growth. It is a category that I think has been underrepresented both in brick and mortar and on Amazon, with brands focusing more on probiotics and less on the enzyme space. With that said, enzymes is a category that is going to continue to grow, and it's less expensive to compete in than in probiotics, especially when you have your digital marketing hat on and trying to understand how expensive is it going to be to drive new customers to my products in probiotics versus in the enzyme space. In enzymes, we see that the number 1 delivery form is capsules, just like in probiotics, with a 51% market share. Tablets is number 2 with 34%. Chewable is number 3 with 6%. The top 5 brands in the space is Enzymatica, which is essentially a brand that has been focused in the enzyme space. ZenWise is a brand similar to Physician's Choice that has really focused on being Amazon and digitally native first and winning there before they expand beyond the Amazon channel. More of a conventional brand with Lactaid. Now Foods, which plays in all kinds of vitamins and supplements, is a big player in this space, and a brand that has been very successful both online and also in brick and mortar. And Pure Encapsulations, more on the higher end, also a brand that is doing well in the enzyme space. Enzymes has grown by 3% year over year on the price points, as the average price at $25.74 for the category. In that next slide, we'll take a look at the top 5 products. ZenWise with the number 1 seller. ZenWise is that digitally native brand that I had mentioned that really started, from our understanding, in the online space and really won there before expanding beyond Amazon and e-commerce. We see Lactaid with the number 3 product. Again, Lactaid is a brand that we all know, more on the conventional side, but also very successful online. And then Enzymatica with the 4th, and Wholesome Wellness with the 5th. Wholesome Wellness is another brand that is more digitally native. Enzymatica is a brand that it really has focused on the enzyme space. And just like in probiotics, we're seeing a wide range of price points from $12 to $82 or $81 in this category. it's important to understand, there's different counts for these products, but it's important to understand the price points that the consumers will want to pay for these bottles. As we go to the next slide, we're looking at fiber, a category that's classic, that has been around long before probiotics and enzymes and everything else, as far as being in mainstream and on the shelf at brick and mortar. This is a category that continues to grow. It's growing again at 15%, double-digit growth. I'll take a timeout here and mention something else as well. These last three categories that we have gone through are still growing very, very well, 18, 22, and 15% respectively. Amazon has slowed down. Obviously, we saw the crazy growth in 2020 and 2021, a lot of it due to COVID, but most categories have slowed down significantly. What this tells me is that microbiome, probiotics, fiber, enzymes, prebiotics, these categories are still winning and still growing ahead of the rest of the general growth rate of vitamins and supplements. So as a brand, as a manufacturer, as a retailer, you can continue to invest in these categories with the expectation of continued growth for the next several years. As we go to the next slide, we'll take a look at the delivery methods in these categories. Fiber powder is the #1 seller as far as delivery form, but it is the slowest growing at 8%. So we see that capsules may be a better bet with a healthy 25% market share, 30% annual growth. And before we move to the next slide, I want to show some of the brands that are dominating in the space. Benefiber, right in the middle there, is more of a powdered form delivery form product across their line. Metamucil is more on the capsule side. Nafoods plays across different ones, and Smarty Pants is more of a gummies focused brand and has fiber products in gummy form. Fiber has increased by 10%. So this is a category that is starting to feel the impact of inflation and issues with the supply chain. So it has grown by 10% year over year, and this could continue to increase in the next few months. As we go to the next slide, this is the slide that I wanted to show with the different delivery forms for the top 5 products. So Metamucil has a powder, that's the #1 ranked product, but also has a capsule with #2. Then we see Smarty Pants with gummies at #3. Gummies is a delivery form that is extremely popular, as mentioned a few minutes ago, but it is also one that is not viable for all categories and also difficult to get someone to make it for you because of the limitation in the ability to make gummies for all of the demand that exists for it. But gummies is a safe bet for fiber because it is a delivery form that is underrepresented in this category, but growing faster than the rest of the delivery forms. We see Pure Ferment and Benefiber rounding out the top 5. And again, we're seeing a variety of delivery forms and price points in this category as well. And as we go to the next slide, wanted to level set by showing some of the growth rates in other similar categories in vitamins and supplements online and on Amazon. So vitamin C has decreased by 18%. I think this is pretty easy to understand why vitamin C and all the other immunity-focused supplements grew tremendously due to COVID. That has slowed down, and therefore the demand for these products, I think there was a oversaturation of the inventory and availability of some of these products in the market. And so some of these products have gone the other way as far as the growth rates. This will bounce back, but it's just a matter of understanding when that's going to happen. GABA with 14%. Melatonin was one that was growing close to 100% at one point over the last 18 months, down to 9%. And magnesium is one that has been growing steadily for 4 or 5 years at 23%. And as we go to the next slide, wanted to thank everybody for listening to Scott and I for a few minutes. If you guys want to learn more about ClearCut and Spins and the data that we have available for our partners and our clients, please reach out to us. Happy to connect again.
Excellent. All right. Thank you both, Dan and Scott. We do have questions coming in. So again, you can post your questions into the Q&A panel and we'll get to those now. I just want to note, I know we have a lot of natural products retailers here, and we always hear in our survey about the pain point with Amazon. So I love these talks where we're talking about what's going on in Amazon in a way that you can use what's going on there and seeing the consumer trends there to help gain an edge over Amazon. So I really appreciate that perspective and seeing, just another tool to help grow the retail side, because we know that, the education and the personal care that the retailers give in store is so important. Which brings me to a question that we have here from Evan. Says, Amazon has allowed brands to share more education on their pages and stores. Are you seeing an impact for brands that share more educational information versus standard product listings?
Absolutely. I think that's been one of the big changes with Amazon over the last 5 years. And brick and mortar, I think in the natural stores, the mom and pops, people that are working those stores are very, very educated, and they help the consumer learn more about the products on their shelf. But that doesn't happen in every single store. And so what happens with brands is that they have very limited space on the label to try to educate the consumer why their brand is different, better, and all of that. On Amazon and online, it's different. You have an entire page to provide your brand story, the differences between your products and why you're different and why you can help solve some of the issues that the consumer may be having. So brands, for those that are in the audience today, should absolutely use Amazon and online, not only for selling your products, but for educating your consumer. And a lot of the time is providing that information on that website or on those pages can help the consumer actually make a more informed choice in the store by looking at reviews and information on the brand, on the product, and they can go on their phone, take a look at what it says about the product, and make the purchase if they're in that physical store.
Excellent. I have another question that's going to be for you, Dan, here. It's from Liz. What is the year-over-year rate of sales change for Amazon vitamins and minerals overall as a benchmark to these data? Please and thank you.
Yeah, so it was last year, about halfway through the year, it was growing at around 43%. At the end of last year, it was growing at around 26%, and it's starting to slow. It's in the teens now.
All right. Question here that could be for either one of you. And I'm just going to rephrase this question a little bit to focus on generational. So the question is, any focus on product lines that are geared for the elderly? So yeah, what are you seeing in terms of targeting generations and what's emerging from that?
Dan, you want me to take this first?
Go for it.
Yeah, so we have been seeing, a rise in children's supplements, specifically as people are starting to be more getting their kids involved in things that they were getting themselves into, at an earlier age. And then also, that there are, especially in probiotics, those ones that are like the 50 plus age. I don't have the exact numbers on, but we are seeing a proliferation of that. And then if I could just jump in on some of the points that were made in the previous questions, it's really important to have that look at both Amazon and brick and mortar. We're seeing the growth of supplements in general coming about 50-50 from in-store and online. So having that full view is so important. And Dan, if you have updated numbers, jump in. But the last time we checked, it was like the growth, was very strong, and it was like 50-50. So, a lot of discoveries happening online and then purchase in store, or, they find it in store and then they're going online to get it on Amazon.
Excellent. I have a question here from Judy, and she gives a little context. So I'm just going to read what she has here so we have the full sense of it. Based on the increasing clinical data suggesting variety and whole foods, and limiting supplementation to only when needed as a best practice. So, food first versus current financial and manufacturing models, such as high mass volume production, one pill quick fix. Do you see a conflict between this in the future? Will consumers pay more for less use? Will manufacturers move to less mass volume production? And will financial investors support this?
All right, that's a complex one. Scott, you want to go for it? Want me to?
I could start, and then you could jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think based on what we're seeing for a lot of this, overall gut health, is that it's really important to consumers, but it is a blurring between supplements and food. So as we showed before, a lot of food are they're called functional foods, and by being enhanced with these specific functional ingredients, whether it be probiotics or prebiotics, or apple cider vinegar is one of the ones that was in the presentation. So I think understanding that line between what's considered a supplement and what's considered a food is blurring more by the day as again, this conscious consumption happens. So I do think that consumers are going to be more open to getting what they used to get from a pill format in their foods. And then to the other question, are brands going to stop mass producing because they think it's worse for people than the foods? I would say, I think the market will dictate, if people are still going for those supplements, I think they'll still keep making them. Dan, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that as well. So one of the things that we've been thinking of the last 5 to 6 years is that, even before that, a lot of these categories were very niche categories with people that were very educated on the ingredients and the types of products. A lot of these categories have gone mainstream, and so there's the opportunity to kind of generalize the messaging and the product for that lay consumer that isn't an expert into nutrition and the natural space, that is also a consumer that we need to be going after. And there's also the ability to be making more higher end products for that very educated consumer that is willing to pay extra per serving, per ounce, and so forth. And we see the ability to reach those customers, the higher end customers in the natural space, but also on Amazon, you have the ability to reach all of those customers because kind of COVID and the emergence of the ease of shopping online has moved people from all types of demographics and ages into shopping on Amazon. So we're seeing all types of consumers there, whereas before it was a kind of a younger demographic, maybe about 10 years ago. And
then just one final thought on that. I think this also touches into another trend, that we're seeing around personalization. So, that starts with some of those, age specific as was mentioned, but also, for more specific conditions, as we look at, people purchasing for different health focuses, there's that personalization area of opportunity as well.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that more in a session that's coming up. So stay tuned for more on that. One final question here. We are a little over time, but I want to get this last question to you. Dan, can you speak to data obtained for products that include prebiotic in the listing descriptions? How do the growth trends compare to main categories of fiber and probiotics? Yeah, so we actually have, let me see if I can quickly pull it up if I have it. So I have a spreadsheet here. So I don't have it in front of me, but we have a prebiotic and probiotic category together. Prebiotic is actually growing at a little bit of a faster rate than probiotics. The caveat there is that probiotics is just a much larger absolute dollar volume than prebiotics. But prebiotics is a good bet for manufacturers and brands and stores to be increasing your presence within that subsegment because it is one that is growing very, very, very well. I'm also interested in that because you did talk about, just one more question, guys, sorry. You talked about kind of the blurring of separate probiotics and prebiotics, and you had different examples. One said pre plus probiotic, one spelled out probiotic plus prebiotic, and the third called out symbiotic on the label. Do we have any sense of how the different language is resonating with consumers? Are they understanding the term symbiotic? I would be very careful, just something that we challenge online, be very careful with the product titles of products online and on Amazon. A lot of that is done to influence the SEO of the ranking of products. What really matters for the consumer, and this is something that I think is good for all of us as shoppers to understand, is if we want to know what the product is all about, let's look at the label and obviously the back label. Let's disregard the product title on a website, because that is a lot of times due to kind of mess with the algorithm to try to get a higher ranking of that product, unfortunately. So interesting. Good to know. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Well, we're over time. I thank you both for taking the time. We've certainly